Hello everyone and welcome to the Bright Computers webinar. Today's topic, protecting your organization's critical data with Checkpoint. With that, let's go ahead and get started. Our speakers today are Trevor Smith, VP of Sales for Bright Computers, and John Briggs, Senior Security Engineer for Bright Computers. And with that, Trevor, the audience is yours.
Thank you very much, Matt. Good morning, everybody. This is Trevor Smith from Bright. Before we get started today, I just wanted to do a quick polling question. We have a number of attendees on the call, and we wanted to find out who are current Checkpoint users and who are customers taking a look at endpoint security. So, Matt, if you could please put up our first polling question, that would be greatly appreciated.
And it does look like we have the majority of the audience has selected an answer. We'll go ahead and close that poll and share our results. And we're showing that 63% are current users and 38% are not.
Okay, fantastic. So for those current users, hopefully you get an opportunity to see some of the existing technology that you've been comfortable with, and also some of the fantastic new enhancements that Checkpoint has put into place with the E80.40. Just for kind of a quick agenda, we're going to give you a quick overview of Bright for those who are not current Bright customers, talk a little bit about the market issues, how Checkpoint is solving that through their endpoint security solution. Then I'm going to flip it over to John, and he will give us a demonstration of the E80.40 client. At the end, we'll have question and answers. As Matt mentioned, you can put those questions in during the presentation, or you can hold them till the end. But it'd be helpful if you have any questions. We'll make sure we can try and get those answered for you. So just for those people on the call that haven't worked with Bright in the past, Bright, we're a total systems security and computing infrastructure integrator. We've been in business since 1983, and we currently have 5 offices located throughout the United States. We separate our offerings into 3 main areas: computing infrastructure, which we provide computing hardware, laptops, desktops, servers, storage, as well as virtual hardware. In addition, what we're going to be talking a lot about today is our data security practice, where we have partnerships with companies like Checkpoint, McAfee, and a number of point solutions. And then our IT services organization helps to support our implementation of these products that we resell, as well as helps us assess our customers' environments to determine which products would be the best solutions. And then over the last 5 years, we've built a true managed service practice where we help our customers augment their IT staff with short-term projects or long-term IT support. Within the Checkpoint endpoint security solution, I wanted to give you a quick summary first. So one of the key elements to Checkpoint and why we've really liked this solution over the last 10 years is that they really help satisfy each of the individual business units. So for first and foremost, and maybe the reason why you've already implemented an endpoint security solution or you're looking to implement one, is that you need to protect your critical information, your critical data. And with that is the threat of a security breach, and the result of any security breach, especially in today's world, is that you have to make a public notification of a security breach. So with solutions such as we're providing here today, you have the opportunity to protect your critical information and safeguard the organization in the event that you have a loss of a device, which happens. You don't have to make the public notification and embarrass your organization. In addition, the information security groups really like the Checkpoint solution and what we're going to show you today because of the ability to discover vulnerabilities, to give you true visibility into your environment, both pre-installation as well as post, help you enforce compliance of your policies that you may have documented or in the process of documenting, and also provides functionality beyond just a simple component. So you'll see there's a lot of elements included within our total security package that helps you give a nice, robust, functioning solution. Information technology groups have expressed a great interest in the Checkpoint product based on the quick and easy deployments. Talking about a couple of days, you're not talking weeks or months for deployments with the Checkpoint solution. What you really see today is this very simplified administration of your endpoint securities, and based on the longevity of the solution and the number of users who have are deployed, we really have limited operational interruptions. So Checkpoint has done a great job of integrating other processes and technologies into their solutions, such as if you're using Ghost or using WinPE or BART-PE tools, or you have different ways to support your mobile workforce, we can integrate those into the support method. And the last is finance. Of course, we make decisions based on finance as well, and based on a combination or combining all of our endpoint security suites, we can help give a lower total licensing cost and administration cost. In today's market, unprotected endpoints, they can put the organization at risk in three major areas. One is data loss. So if a device goes missing or data is placed in a location that is unauthorized, you can have unauthorized access from users targeting those mobile devices. And then you can have the threat of infection. Mobile workers off the network might not have the same securities applied to their device, and so they need to make sure that we can protect them from any type of infection, whether it's a drive-by download or some other element. In addition, when we look at that to try and solve that problem, most organizations apply a number of point solutions to that problem to try and fix it. And even if you do that, if you apply all these endpoint security solutions, you may still not have enough security because they might not work all together, or they might not give you the visibility and control that you need. But what it definitely does is increase your administration time and total cost. You have many agents, many management consoles. It increases the complexity of policy management and policy deployment. You can even increase your testing cycles and degrade the endpoint performance, which then causes users to call with issues and complaints to the help desk. And also, as you have multiple point solutions, you have higher cost associated with just from licensing and maintenance. So what Checkpoint has done is put together a simplified endpoint security management solution, where we unify the endpoint security management for Windows, for Macs, and even for the network. So you can keep them separate for the endpoint devices and the network, or you can combine them into one system to give you just compliance reporting and visibility, or in total management, depending on how your organization is structured for your security management. All the components are industry-leading components that Checkpoint has put into market and combined into one single capability. We provide you a unique visibility and control, and also an education to the user. So providing them with feedback on, hey, this is a security policy that we as an organization have deployed, and you're in a violation of that, and this is why. To give them information versus just blocking that situation and causing a tremendous amount of help desk calls. And then we can manage not just the machine security, but also the users. So if an IT person logs into a machine, they'll have a different set of policies than the actual user who owns that device. With that, just giving you a quick overview of what the components are, there's a few components to the total security package. First is the firewall and compliance. As you upgrade to E80.40 or you deploy a new license component, the firewall and compliance components, which we call blades, they come with your initial subscription. So you get the Checkpoint desktop firewall and compliance capabilities. The compliance has been a very exciting technology and something that a lot of our customers have really been looking for, in that we can look at various components and do a management of your devices as they come on the network. Do they have the up-to-date antivirus? Do they have the correct OS and patches? Do they have applications that we don't allow in our environment, like a peer-to-peer application? And we can take action on those devices to either remediate those issues or quarantine that user as necessary. So provide you a true NAC capability for your managed devices. Next is the full disk encryption. Provide you with encryption of your local hard drives. And then we have media encryption to provide you with the ability to encrypt data as it goes onto your external devices, your USBs, hard drives, CD-ROM, DVDs. We have anti-malware, which we'll mention briefly here today, but most people don't think of Checkpoint as an antivirus, anti-malware company, but the anti-malware included within Total Security is really proven to be a very good performer, been able to achieve the goals and objectives of an antivirus, anti-malware solution. And then by adding the application control, we can give a really robust anti-malware solution for your endpoints at a very cost-effective price point. And the last part is Checkpoint remote access, providing you with SSL or IPsec VPN capabilities for your users. And throughout all these solutions, we can provide single sign-on for your users. So just mentioning the compliance blade, and John will show you this a little bit, but in a little bit more detail, we can look at compliance and give you real-time scanning. We can quarantine the systems, and we can remediate automatically based on certain components or qualifications of that endpoint. The key areas are operating system versions and patches, the checkpoint components, such as they have to have full disencryption or media encryption installed, required applications that they might need, such as certain business applications that you want to make sure are loaded on people's machines, and also restricted applications, like the example before of peer-to-peer applications. And the last part is we can check antiviruses, whether it's a checkpoint antivirus, it's a third party like McAfee or Symantec. We can check that those AVs are installed and they're updated within your allowed time frame, maybe 1 day or 3 days or whatever that time frame is. Going into the full disencryption, just organize this into kind of the quick FAQs that people typically ask. How long does it take to encrypt? The encryption algorithms have continuously been improved, and as well as the performance of the laptops and desktops. So we're seeing anywhere from 40 gig to 60 gig per hour, and we do a full disk encryption, so it's the total capacity of the drive versus how much data is on there. Employees can always use their machines while encryption is going on, so that there's no interruption to their daily activity if these are devices that are already deployed. If you're doing this during the imaging process, you can load the encryption, let it run on a bench, or give it to a user and just have them keep it running for a certain period of time, and then the encryption will automatically happen. Big question from an operational perspective and a PC support perspective is there a lot of effort to support a PC that's been encrypted? And what we say is that we can work with your existing PC operations 99% of the time. We may just change one step or two. And typically that step is where you need to authenticate to the device. So if you're going to slave a drive and pull data off that drive because the laptop has physical damage, then you just need to authenticate to that drive, and then we can enable you to pull that data off if that's within your security policy and you've asked us to help you configure the machine to do that. There's a number of different recovery methods, such as if there's a password that has been typed in too many times and the user's been locked out, we can do password reset functions, all the way to where we can create true recovery USB sticks that will uninstall Checkpoint without ever even logging into the operating system. We deploy the solution with a client. That MSI can be pushed out through any method that you push out your software today, whether it's scripting, whether it's using a tool like SCCM or something else. But once that agent is out on the machine, then we can do other blades or functionality can be deployed directly from the Checkpoint console. And John will show you a little bit of how that works. The impact to the end user should be minimum. We can provide you with a pre-boot login environment, or what's called a Windows integrated login. Pre-boot just changes the login screen for your users, and so now they're logging into a secure environment, or Windows integrated login changes nothing for the users as far as full disk encryption, and that they'd log right into a Windows screen. Both are still FIPS 140-2 compliant, so we maintain the certifications you need for the Security Breach Notification Acts. And then full disk encryption can be deployed separately from total security as it's necessary and needs to be used. So moving on to anti-malware, just a quick slide on this, but we've experienced in comparison with some of the other leading AV vendors with a very, very fast user experience, and we encourage you, if you're looking at other components, to test out the anti-malware and see if it's a possibility to either replace or consolidate your current AV vendors. In addition, from a boot up time, we've seen an extremely fast boot up time as well as a limited impact on the total memory footprint of your environment. Moving on to the media encryption side. So when we look at media encryption and we talk to our customers, what is the real needs that come about? Usually first it's discovering the vulnerabilities exist. People see USB sticks hanging around their colleagues' necks, or they see them sitting around on desks, and they know they're being used, but what are they really being used for? So a need to really figure out and understand your vulnerabilities that exist in the environment. The next thing is to, if you have a written policy around removal media, well, we need to be able to take a look at that policy and then implement that security policy and have a way to enforce it on your devices. And being able to implement a policy takes technology to do that. So if you say no one can use the USB devices, or how do you try to enforce that today? Or how do you know that people are using them or aren't using them? And then need to be able to protect the organization's sensitive data as it's moved on to these devices, and also have an ability to audit. So if an employee leaves his post or her post, you want to be able to take a look at audit reports and find out, did they take any data, drop it on an external device, and bring it with them as they walked out the door. And the last part is we need to have that balance between security and keeping the business running as it needs to run. So we need to be able to empower our employees to do what they need to do. So enable a USB device to be able to store data, store it securely, but then enable someone to use it on a third-party machine if that's appropriate for their work description. So what does media encryption really do? It gives you the ability to essentially manage and control the use of all your removable media and I/O devices. So it's not just USB sticks, it's CD-ROMs, it's DVDs. We can also control Bluetooth capabilities and infrared and SCSI and all sorts of other I/O devices, pretty much anything that has an input-output control. We provide the ability for transparent removable media encryption, so that once a user logs in and gives the device a login and password, anytime they copy data to it, they save data to it, they drag and drop, it's all the same operations they would follow within a Windows environment today. We give the ability to manage the control or the content and the applications that are used back and forth on these devices, and we can set up real-time alerting so that if someone copies down a PST file or a large database file, you might want to have an automatic alert sent off to a security professional, and you can have that done. And the last part is it ensures your compliance. So with the FIPS 140-2 rating, and also the ability to enforce your security policies, we can enforce that compliance. One major change too to the media encryption blade is now we provide the ability to protect business data, but also allow users to put personal data on the same device in unencrypted fashion. So you'd have a user who put his personal data, maybe his music and pictures, on a device and unencrypt it, but then business data like PDF or Excel documents or PowerPoints would be encrypted. Another component to the checkpoint solution, which isn't specific to an individual blade, but overall, is an element called user check. What user check is an education for the end users. And this has really been a fantastic solution that we've seen customers use because it helps educate the users throughout the process. And here's an example. The security policy within an organization is that all data is going to be encrypted as it's written to a external storage device. So a user plugs their device in, copies a PowerPoint down, and this nice message pops up that says, the computer policy requires that the files copied to the removal store must be encrypted. So we have a couple of options here. You can encrypt the file. You can hit cancel, which would then not copy the file. You can encrypt the USB stick. You can hit cancel, or you can hit more options. If we click on more options, it would come up with this user check capability and this interface for the user, to request an exception. Now you can determine that you can automatically allow exceptions, or you can make it a little bit more restrictive depending on the users and the types of content that they're trying to move. But in this case, it says, okay, we have a user who's enters their reason, they put their reason in, and now there's an audit trail around what that user was doing. The user check has really helped to reduce help desk calls, helped clearly communicate the security policies of an organization to the end users, and helped deployments be put out faster because you have this education component going on the whole time. And the last two last components I mentioned on the endpoint security before we talk about the management is web check and program control. Now, web check provides the ability to, what it does is it virtualizes the actual web browser session. So a browser session is pulled up in IE Explorer or Mozilla, and it virtualizes the system, or the registry files for the application, the DLL files, and it creates this virtual environment. So as the user is browsing the internet, as they're going to different sites, any type of malware that they can track during that situation, it will try and access these DLL files and registry files. But it only has access to the virtual copy ones, not the actual system registry and DLLs. So once the user shuts down that browser in that session, it immediately deletes that information. So it creates this nice, almost quarantine environment for users to do web browsing, which, based on the fact that 70% of all malware is web-borne, it can help really eliminate that vulnerability that exists for anti-malware. And the last part is program control. Checkpoint has taken their program control capabilities from their firewall, put it into the endpoint, and really give us an ability to allow or deny the use of certain applications on the endpoint devices. So just quickly, I'll talk a little bit about the management, and then I'll flip it over to John so that he can show you a little bit of it. But the management, we look at it giving us 4 major components. The ability to monitor the activities that go on within the environment and what's important to you, because you kind of role-based logins and visibility into the management. Give you manage policies as you initially configure the system, and then exceptions as you need to help some job completed. And it also helps us enforce the compliance on the endpoints and at the network. And the last part is education of the communication of that policy through the user check capabilities. So if we look at defining a security policy, you might define a security policy in a generic fashion, such as encrypting all drives on a PC and a Mac, encrypt the business data that's copied to a storage device, allow connections from only trusted sources from a firewall perspective, and then with AV or AM, make sure that we're scanning the files upon access and deleting any infected files. Historically, those 4 relatively simple policies have required a tremendous amount of configuration and a pretty arduous task to understand security policies and go through that policy. And it results, especially over time and over turnover of individual IT professionals, it causes a lot of misunderstanding and misconfiguration of the endpoints. So what Checkpoint has done is really simplified this to try and make the policies very simple to understand from a summary perspective. You can, of course, then drill into these policies and reconfigure them as you need to, but as you look at it, you can get a quick understanding of where are we today in our configuration. So we have a quick policy that says encrypt all hard drives, allow reading of any data, make all your storage devices read-only, but anytime you want to move data to it, make it encrypted. So very simple policies that can help simplify your view of the security policies that have been put in place. What we then also do is provide a very robust dashboard, which Sean will go into in detail, but it gives you quick visibility into what's the compliance within your environment and the health of your endpoints within your network. So you can look at those elements very quickly. You also have an integration now with Checkpoint's endpoint with Smart Event. So for those who don't know Smart Event or haven't used it on the Checkpoint network side, it's a very robust event analyzer. And with this, we can now look at it from an endpoint side for those critical components like compliance, anti-malware, media encryption to get data and a view of, hey, where are my security risks that are occurring? And then once you identify those, then look and drill into it and find out the specific devices that are causing that security vulnerability. As we look at this and as Checkpoint has brought this new E8040 to market, they've really focused on providing the ability, but not the requirement, the ability to have endpoint and network management. And what that does is provide you with the ability to take a look at your unified security for your endpoints and at your network. An example that we look at is if you had both Checkpoint's network DLP and Checkpoint endpoint at the media encryption, we could then look at multiple tries by an employee to potentially copy data outside the organization. Maybe they were trying to email it, so we're detecting it through SMTP, or they're trying to upload it to a website, we're detecting it through HTTP or HTTPS, or they're trying to copy it to a USB stick. This information is going to be captured in multiple logs, and then we can correlate those together within the unified management and unified log management to see that there's full visibility of what this employee is trying to do. And there's other examples of this, how it can be done with outside hackers trying to come in, trying to hit a user at a coffee shop or outside the organization, as well as when that user is within the network. The last part, we've also, as an organization, Bright, we've put a solution in place to provide Checkpoint as a service. So if you don't want to put Checkpoint on premise, but you still want to be able to use the same great technologies, we can provide it as a hosted service. You would still have the opportunity to put together your company-specific security profiles. So it's not generic profiles for every single all organizations. Not one. We know that one size does not fit all. We would have user data collection that we can provide through some proprietary tools we've integrated with Checkpoint. We give you 24/7 help desk and network operations. We provide reporting on compliance and other elements that John will show you in the reporting. And then we manage the licenses for you and create a operating expense out of a capital expenditure. So with that, I will flip it over to John. And just before we go to John, we just want to have one quick polling question while we're moving from my screen to John's screen. So if you could answer that for us, that would be greatly appreciated.
And looks like the overwhelming majority at 80% is refreshing existing technology, mobile device security, then followed by data loss prevention, intrusion prevention systems, and remote access.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for participating in that. The results are probably pretty common of what you guys see in the market, so we appreciate participating in that. And we'll flip it over to John now so he can give us a demonstration on the capabilities. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. This is John Briggs with Bright Computers. Very excited to show you the 8040 software solution from Checkpoint. Trevor and I and the rest of the sales team have worked closely over the past few years in the previous versions of the product. So we're very excited about this new version, the capabilities that it offers you, both as existing customers and for new customers as well. What you're looking at right now is everyone can see my screen, I take it. What we're looking at currently is the 8040 dashboard when you first go into the product. The Checkpoint 8040 software can be either loaded in a Windows environment, and in this case we're running it in a VM. Most of my customers run the server in a VM. This is a Windows Server 2008 R2 configuration. It can be run from a Windows platform, or if you leverage current, you can leverage current existing Checkpoint appliance technology and use what's called the GUI version of our software, which basically snaps into the 7540 firmware of current Checkpoint appliances. So based on the configuration that you have, we can accommodate either option, and the interface is similar in both options. One thing I just wanted to mention real quick is if you have seen the Checkpoint product before, this product is built off of their Smart Console suite of software, which is typically used for their appliance. So the look and feel of several portions of this demonstration look like the appliance. It's because it's based off of that technology. So real quick, I know that Trevor had brought this up before. When you first go into the product, one nice thing about it is if you install it, it comes with a demo mode. Okay, so we're actually running this in a demo mode right now, so we can populate it with all sorts of great information so you can see the flow of the product as well. They really do a good job. Checkpoint does a good job of trying to encourage users to kind of deep dive right into the product right out of the box. So they have a number of wizards as well that you can use. There's a getting started wizard which will take you through the entire process. And there's also compliance, a security analysis. That's brand new. It's a brand new feature to the 8040 version, which allows you to push out prior to the installation a quick analysis, a quick agent, which takes a look at the health of your endpoints in your environment and provides a report on such things as patch management or administrative accounts on machines, or if RDP services are loaded, a number of security checks against the system, and as I said, provides you with a feedback for those endpoints. So the endpoint, so the overview panel, real quick, allows us to quickly get a snapshot of the health of your environment as it pertains to the software portions that you have purchased for the for your version of Checkpoint. Checkpoint calls the software that you build for the system a blade. They call it a software blade. So you have your full disk encryption blade, your media encryption blade, web check, your firewall blades, and so forth. And this is the console which, based upon the criteria, based on which blades you purchase and set up, gives us a real quick overview of the health of your environment. In each one of these bullet points here, we have such as a security summary of how many machines are currently aligned with your security policy, and how many have warranties. All these offer quick remediation. You can click on any one of these options and quickly get a report or access to the various warnings for each of these systems, the health of each of these systems, and we can open up a particular system and navigate directly to that and gain a better understanding of the current health of a particular system. So right from the overview on the front page, we can quickly remediate or take care of issues as they show up when we first enter into our environment. And real quick, we also have the ability to set active alerts. So we'll see this when we go into reporting. We can now set alerts for different events in the system. So you define a threshold for that alert, such as if I receive, if 3% of my workstations start to exhibit or show that there's a piece of virus on their system, the system can send you an email. It can also put the current system status in this front window, and it will also show up in the reporting pane. Conversely, when you dip below that threshold, the alert will then go away. But now, in terms of things like zero-day virus policies or virus alerts, you have the ability to quickly react to them as they come to bear. And again, we can grade it. We have a quick graph down here where we can see the security status and a nice graph of our current endpoints. And if we click on the Endpoints tab, we can actually get a breakdown of which machines are compliant in each state. Okay? All right, so let's talk real quick about deployment. If you've used the current version or the older version of the product, you might know that the products such as full disk encryption and media encryption and total security were all separate products in the earlier versions of the product. And they varied in terms of their architecture. The media encryption product was a server client configuration, whereas the full disk encryption was centrally managed, such as when you employed or implemented the FDE and deployed it in your environment, the management console was built in locally on that workstation. Now everything is integrated into this central server console. And because of that, they've gone completely away from any type of central management policy to everything stored securely within a SQL database. So all log files, all recovery files, all policies, any of the groups that we create in here are all secured within this database in the machine. So there's no more management of keys and so forth like you had in the earlier versions of the product. Okay. As Trevor alluded to, we deploy out an initial agent. It's just a communication agent, okay? That's about 10 meg in size, and it has the ability to communicate. It can be deployed. You would deploy it through a third-party solution. You would deploy it either to your new workstations or to existing workstations. And its role is to just is to install itself in the local system. And because we generate this initial client from within the server, it's going to contain a certificate and the IP address of the server. So when we roll it out, it communicates to the server and acknowledges that it is authorized to communicate with the server. From then, what we can do is, after we have used our third-party utility or just used SneakerNet to push this out, all subsequent pushes of software, of updates, of upgrades, of policies are handled directly from the server to the agent. So in the old days, in order to upgrade a product, you basically had to get the new version of the product and build a whole other package and push it out in earnest to your entire environment, okay? Which was essentially another installation of the product, okay? And that's why a lot of our clients kind of avoided upgrades at some point, okay? In this way, after you have the initial agent on the machine, we can deploy the software blades out to specific machines, okay? So in this case, I can build a package that says, my default package for the entire organization, they get full disk encryption, media encryption, they get all these various components. So as I install this agent out to my entire environment, I pull down automatically from the server all of these particular items. Again, once the agent's on the machine, it all gets deployed from the server. Okay. If I wanted to say, well, I don't want everyone to get that, maybe I have a sales force where I don't want them to get the media encryption and so forth, I can create separate packages that says, as you report to the organization, if you are a part of the sales team, and we'll take a look at that in a bit, you don't get everything. You don't get the default view. As a member of the sales team, you only get full disk encryption and media encryption, or the full disk encryption and the compliance blade. Okay. So I have the ability, once I have the agent out there, to structure different types of software installations to different groups of machines, to different users, to different areas of the network automatically. And I can both install and uninstall machines in that fashion. And upgrades are handled in the same way. Once the server is upgraded, I can push out an upgrade to the entire organization, or I can test with a certain group and so forth. But everything is initiated now from the server to the agent once the agent's in place. Okay? All right. One quick question, one quick answer about this, or point about this rather, is I don't necessarily have to push everything from the server. If I've made an investment in my third-party deployment utility, I could package all of these pieces of software, let's say the sales package up, in with the agent and deploy it as one package. And that will save you from having to download all the information from the server. Okay. There still is some communication that has to occur, okay? But beyond that, the brunt of the package is installed initially with the agent. So you can leverage software distribution points with that. All right. We took a quick look at how we apply policy or how we apply a package to the entire organization, okay, or how we did it to a specific role in the organization. And I just wanted to show you real quick how we create a dichotomy of different users and computers within the E8040 console. E8040 allows us to create to create different groups of users by a number of means. First of all, we have directories, which are based off of Active Directory. There is a directory scanner that is based in the product that has the ability with credentials to scan your network and to take a snapshot of either all of your Active Directory, and it can do multi-domains, or a portion of that environment. Once you pull that in, we don't change the schema in any way. We just take a snapshot of that environment. And now we can apply packages towards that, like we did with our Salesforce team with a hot pick scenario here, which we did here. And I can apply policy towards them as well. Okay. So as opposed to the older versions of the product, we can leverage LDAP and Active Directory. We can also do it by a number of other means. We can break it down by networks. So if you have a satellite office with a different subnet, you can set a different set of packages or criteria or policies towards them. Okay. Anyone that doesn't fall into those groups goes into the other users and computers groups, typically for people off domain who log in locally. So if you're worried about people logging in locally, you can have a much more restrictive policy if they log in locally, as opposed to the policy that they have when they're logged in with their AD account. And finally, a very popular option here is the use of virtual groups. Virtual groups allow me to group computers outside of having to use Active Directory using LDAP to group. Many of the complaints that we hear from our administrators is, well, we're the administrator for the product, but we don't have the rights to just go in and create new groups in AD, nor would we want to, because of the bureaucracy, or we don't want to muddle up AD. So we have the ability to build custom groups, okay, and apply packages and policy towards them. So, for instance, if I have a standard policy for CD burning that says people in my organization have to encrypt the CD. If they don't, they only have read-only access. Well, I might have a group of users that put through an exception in the help desk that say, hey, if we don't choose to encrypt, I need full access. I can create a CD burning virtual group for them and add their users as members into the environment. And I can call it CD burning. And now I can go into their user accounts that I have pulled in via my directory scanner and LDAP and include them and add them into this group. So once I have this group, I can apply a different policy from the standard from the rest of the organization when it pertains to CD burning. And the individuals in this group will now have an exception. I have not modified Active Directory in any way. I've just built a custom group. One of the nice things is that we have a lot of people that use Active Directory, and they pull in Active Directory. But there are some real simple groups that the virtual groups that are created automatically in the virtual groups, such as laptops and desktops. We have organizations that buy full disk encryption, media encryption for laptops because they're mobile. But for desktops, they don't necessarily buy the purchase of full disk encryption, although I would encourage it, because they're not mobile. Well, what we can do is automatically separate the architecture, we separate devices in your field by their architecture. We can determine if they're a laptop or a desktop, okay, and automatically push the appropriate software to them and the appropriate policies. So we can leverage these virtual groups as opposed to leveraging or have to totally rely upon Active Directory. We can augment with Active Directory, but use the strength of these groups to push out packages. All right. So that's where users and computers come in. They allow us to create groupings and so forth of how we're going to push packages and policies to people. So let's talk about policies. So we built a package, and we said to the entire organization, okay, if you're a standard user, you're going to get everything. Okay, you're going to get full disk encryption and media encryption. Now we have to determine the policies. And here you can see all the various policies that we can create. Whenever we have a policy, we always create a default policy that applies to the entire organization. Okay, so you can see here that if you've used the full disk encryption product before, everything in the old product is contained within this policy. Okay, if I open up and take a look, I have some quick drop downs that I can use for options. Okay, such as I want to encrypt all disks, or I don't want to encrypt local disks. I can just simply choose one of these options quickly and choose that for this particular policy. Or I can create a custom policy that says I'm going to dictate specifically what the terms are for this policy. So I can call this high-pick standard policy, and I can say, you know what, I'm going to encrypt everything with AES 256. This is my policy. Now I have this high-pick policy that goes forward for the entire organization. They've moved away from creating one policy and setting all the switches in it, as opposed to creating a policy but having a variety of choices for each one, so I can just choose some simple drop-downs for this. If I needed a policy that differs for another part of the organization, you can see here I created one for the sales force, and it can show me the difference between my Salesforce policy and my standard policy down here. Okay. So in this case, I'm encrypting all local disks as opposed to what I said in high-picks, and I'm loading the users in what we call Windows Integrated Login. I have the ability to kind of create these policies quickly for each one of the media blades that I have. Okay, including the compliance blade. Now I know that Trevor had taken a look at the compliance blade. The compliance blade is a very, very powerful blade that comes included as part of the container when you purchase the product. Okay, and it has the ability for you to create custom checks on end users and to report back from their compliancy built on those checks. Such as, I can create a custom check for required applications and files. So if I know that there's a particular application that all machines, like say within the HR department, must have, or maybe in the accounting department, there's a certain piece of software that they have, I can check for that. And if it's not on the machine, it can send an alert to a user to say, okay, you need to go to this machine and to purchase or to install this on these HR machines. Or I can have restricted applications and files. Hey, if I want to know if someone's using LimeWire at work, I can get a report back from all the people in a particular segment of the organization, or maybe the entire organization, okay, that are using LimeWire. And I could build that from scratch. One of the other nice things about it is I can also set remediation rules. So not only am I finding LimeWire, I can warn the end user that they have LimeWire, and I can set a remediation policy. So I can run a custom file for a download path that I have. I can check an MD5. I can do a checksum on that. I can execute a policy. This really comes into play when we're taking a look at creating compliance policies based off such things as service pack checks. I can automatically create a rule that says, okay, well, I might have another solution that's installing, or I might have SUS, okay, that's installing. But what if I want to check and see if SUS is running fine, if it's installing policies? Or if I'm letting users do that on their own, how do I check that? Well, what I could do is I can simply create a rule that says, I'm going to check for all operating systems a particular service pack check. And here I have a list of different service packs for a variety of different OS versions that I can check on the device. This is where remediation comes in, because if I find a machine is in my environment and doesn't have Windows Service Pack 2, say for instance, okay, and sends up a flag, I can have the default remediation say automatically, well, you know what, if that happens, start to download it from this path, start to do the upgrade, or to run a script that can upgrade their service pack. So now you've moved simply beyond full disk encryption and media encryption. You're actually leveraging technology that's built into the software, that's built into the container, okay, to help fortify the security stance of your environment, okay? So we use policies to dictate how each one of the blades that you procure for your checkpoint, okay, how they pertain to the business, from the entire business or to certain segments of the business that we set up. And you can have different policies for different members of the organization. If you're using them deploying something like Active Directory, if you, let's say for instance, you created a media encryption policy for the entire organization, but you allow your domain administrators to have a different policy, okay? If you apply the standard policy to your entire organization, but then you as a user move to the administrator, a domain administrator role, I can create a secondary account, apply it just to domain admins, and as you move from AD into the domain admins groups, your policy changes as well. Okay, so that's the real advantage of having a separation of policies, different policies in your environment, and also employing the users and computers portion of this. Everything that we do right now, one of the highlights of the product as opposed to some of the earlier versions of the product, I work a lot with like the R73 full disk encryption and the media encryption products, and they're terrific products. But one of the things where it could be greatly enhanced was on the reporting side of things, okay? Especially with the full disk encryption. Each individual log file had to be opened and queried and scraped. I no longer have that. I no longer have that issue with your new version of the product. And I can get reports outside of even just the standard health of my full disk encryption, my media encryption, my web check. I can now gauge the health of my deployments in general, or the connectivity of my endpoints, or how many of my endpoints that I pulled in from Active Directory are compliant or even using my product. This is the real strength of the program. So from a full disk encryption standpoint, back in the old days, I would have a whole log file I would have a full folder full of log files, and I'd have to go through each one. Now you can see from the encryption standpoint, I can gain very quickly, just by going into it in real time, the status of all my encrypted endpoints in one window. If I want to focus in on a certain area, okay, if I want to say, look, I want to say, just give me everyone that's encrypted, Or give me everyone that's currently encrypting. I can gain a quick snapshot of all of those users in my environment. Okay. Currently, I have no one on this list that's currently encrypting. But I can see here from the list who's decrypting and quickly go to those machines. I can also search for certain people. Or I can focus, if I'm doing a structured deployment, on a certain segment of the population. So I could say, just show me how the sales team is in terms of compliance with full disk encryption. And I can quickly gain a report of everyone who's encrypted within my sales force. Not only that, but this report can be generated. I can export the file in HTML, CSV, or Excel. Okay? From an encryption standpoint, from a troubleshooting standpoint, it's a tremendous help. Because now, if it has a problem with the encryption, it will report back where the issue is or what status the machine is reporting back. So from a support standpoint, I can quickly remediate issues when it comes to the deployment of the software. From a compliance standpoint, we looked at the compliance blade before. I can see how many, based upon if I set up the compliance blade like we said, how many of those are compliant and how many of those are restricted, and quickly go and pull up those machines as well, or what the top violations are. In this case, you can see these many people, they don't have the Service Pack 3 release. And I have a list of those people, so now I can send my support staff out to them. And there are some other useful reports. You can check in your total license report as it pertains to the product. Or from an activity report, I can see how many people are connecting to the server, or what the blade status is. Or based upon how many people I pulled in from AD, what percentage of them are actually using the Checkpoint product. So there are a number of reports I can pull down from this. And if I want to get even more granular for these reports, I have an entire smart event blade, okay, that allows me to look at the health of my endpoints in a more granular fashion. So here, from an anti-bot and antivirus standpoint, I can really do a deep dive in terms of the information that I can get from the system. And again, we talked about the alert section. Here's where I can set up the alerts and the thresholds to let me know if there's a certain event in my environment as it pertains to the software that I purchased. If full disk encryption has failed or if deployment has failed, I get an alert that can be sent to an email automatically. Okay.
So I think, John, that's a very good overview of the solution and the demonstration. We're running tight on the time that we had allotted for our attendees. So I wanted just to take a couple quick minutes here to take a pause. For anybody who's on the phone and wants to dive deeper into this, from a discussion perspective or a demonstration or understanding how this fits in your environment, John and myself would be happy to have that individual discussion with you. I think, Matt, if you could, I think there's been a couple of questions that have come in during this presentation. If we could get those questions answered, and then we could be able to follow up with any individuals after the screen, that would be great.
Excellent. Thank you, Trevor. And that does bring us to the Q&A portion of today's presentation. Again, if you do have questions for our presenters, you can send those using the chat box on the lower right-hand side of your control panel. And with that, we'll get started with the first couple that have come across here. Trevor, the first question I have is, for media encryption, are you scanning the content with the data file when allowing or denying transfer to a USB stick?
Okay, it's a good question. So there's not a DLP functionality that we're providing within the media encryption. We can restrict certain data file types. However, Checkpoint has a full data loss prevention solution that does the scanning based on content within a file. So based on pattern matching, keywords, file types, other components. So the Checkpoint DLP would probably solve that solution.
Excellent. Thank you. And the next question we have is, can you or Checkpoint help us assess the risk of our endpoints?
Okay, yep, that's something we did include on this presentation, but we can talk about individually. So Checkpoint has a number of different assessment reports that we can provide and perform on your network. The main elements that we can identify through these assessment reports, one is data loss prevention events. So what type of activities are occurring within your organization that might look as if data could be lost. Intrusion prevention events, web-based events, and then also the overall health of the endpoints. So we absolutely can do that and be be happy to talk to you about those reports and how we can run those for you as part of a service.
Okay. Then, unfortunately, Trevor, I do believe we are going to be running to the end of our time here. We have had some other questions come across. If we didn't get to yours live, we will be following up with you directly via email. So definitely send any other questions across while we still have a few moments here. And Trevor, I'd like to just give you a moment for any closing statements that you have for our audience.
Well, just thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We look forward to the opportunity to speak with you individually about how Checkpoint might be able to secure your organization's critical data, and have a great day.
Excellent. Thank you, Trevor and John, for another wonderful presentation. That does conclude today's event. Again, I would like to thank everyone for attending, and have a great day.